The whole point of going and joining in the conversation was to listen, to respect people who may not agree with us, to learn more about why they hold the views they hold, and to come to an understanding that even though we may disagree on how we get there, we all agree on some very fundamental things.
Our country suffers from a lack of civil conversation, and I think it's hidden quite often, the personal side of it, in social media. So I might say to Peter, what are your worst fears about the AR-15, and can you explain to me why you think it's more dangerous than any other weapon system?
Can you answer that?
Not easily, off the top of my head, but I have to think about the number of bullets that it can fire fast, the apparent, and I base it on what I've read from doctors and others, the apparent damage that it causes when it hits a person, and the fact that, what did Dan say? Oh, they're black and scary because they look like military weapons. I would ask a similar question that would be phrased along the lines of, what are the threats? What threats do you perceive that would be important or would be bad enough that you would want to have an AR-15 or any other weapon in your house?
And can you answer that?
If you're not comfortable with a firearm, you shouldn't have a firearm. However, I know from my career in law enforcement and where I live, conceivably, it's a long time before help is coming. I live in a very remote part of the state. And I have called local law enforcement, and to no fault of their own, they're stretched far too thin, and it could even be a half hour before somebody got there to help. And that's a best case scenario. So I guess what my concern would be, as an American, I have the right to defend myself in my home. That AR-15 weapons platform, because I'm familiar with it, carried a similar platform as a soldier and then as a police officer in different situations. I know it's very versatile, and yet at the same time I can control if I have to fire that weapon and use deadly force. I can be very specific about how I control those rounds so that I don't hurt anybody else or anything else. We notice that we have a lot more in common than we have uncommon. And that's what I think everybody gained down there. I think without any influence of social media, without any filters of impersonal direction, we all found that we had a lot in common and could have a civil and effective conversation.
Now it's up to us to educate them on how to properly communicate with all of us if the collective us is going to work.